The sins never die. Can't watch the blood on our hands. Let the world fill us all.
What's up everyone, Darcblade here bringing you a patch information video for Metal Gear Online 3. This is covering the patch 1.02. It was released on the 17th of December 2015 for all systems, although I believe the Xbox 360 version has had a delay in the patch. But anyway, there's quite a few fixes and changes, so I'll try to cover all of them in this video. Firstly, Konami have addressed various bug fixes. The first is an issue in the black site map where a player could sometimes exit outside of the map from the basement area. This should no longer be possible. Next, they fixed an issue where experience points would not properly distribute for Ascension level 3. For players who don't know, Ascension is when you basically prestige a character. Next, they fixed an issue where players would incorrectly gain experience points when completed an invalid match. Not 100% sure what they mean by invalid match, but still, it is a fix. The next fix is to an issue where players gained experience points by killing a teammate who is being choked in CQC. I suppose players could boost each other if there was communication this way. Next, they fixed an issue where experience points were not properly distributed when taking over an enemy controlled walker gear with multiple players. Next, they fixed an issue with the Cloak and Daggers game type, where players gain data discs recovering experience points without actually recovering the data disc. Next, they addressed an issue where the avatar customization screen would not respond to controller input. Next, they fixed an issue where the system menu would not respond to controller input. There seems to be a lot of fixes for controller issues here. The next fix is to an issue with the party system where players were unable to create a new party right after leaving a party. Next, they fixed an issue to the ranking screen when the players were not included on the list. They also fixed an issue where players were able to keep the increased weapon slots given by certain abilities even after removing that particular ability from their loadout. For example, taking the perk that allowed you to carry more grenades or items. This is now sorted and shouldn't be an issue. Next, they fixed an issue in the beginning of round 2 where certain markers from the end of round 1 remained on the mission start screen. That seems to be it for the bug fixes at least. Next, we're moving on to host migration issues. First, a new host will be selected when a host abandons the match, allowing all other players in that match to restart the match with a new host at least. This is for PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. No mention of Xbox 360. This new option will allow players to join a match and stay on the same team as their party members because the team split would not occur until enough players had joined the match. This is good because I often found it really annoying that you were not put on the same team as those in your party. Next, with host migration, all experience points gained through the abandoned match will be given to all players in that match except for the host. Next, moving on from host migration, we're going on to match settings. Firstly, they've added an option to set the minimum player count in the create match mode. This new option will allow players to set up a match with the desired number of team members before the team splits. Next, they've added an option to set the host comments in create match. So, for example, you can put up to 3 comments saying Japanese region only, casual match only, experienced players, so on and so forth. You can put notes onto what type of match you will be joining when you're searching for a game. Next, they've added the option to enable or disable walker gears from the game. This is fair enough as some people don't like the walker gears in their match. However, with recent patches like the previous patch, walker gears are not the powerhouse as they once were. Next, they've added an option to set the frequency of weather changes in the create match. Players can choose between 3 options: frequent, standard, or off completely. I like the dynamic weather effects that occur during matches, so I would always be setting it to frequent if I create a game. Next, they've added a filter in the select match option to show matches which are full. This is for PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Next, they've added an option to set rush mode on or off in auto match, so you can choose to play rush mode maps only if you want. For those of you who don't know, rush maps are smaller maps that are more intense. Next, they've improved the auto match to prevent the players to play on the same map consecutively. I personally never really found this a problem. And lastly, they've improved matchmaking in auto match when choosing the random option. Players who choose the random option will now be prioritized into matches together. Next, a new mechanic they've added with this patch, and that is titles and medals. Basically, they've added titles and medals as a whole new feature. Players will now earn titles and medals which are rewarded during the scheduled maintenance. The titles a player has earned that require the most effort within the upcoming scheduled maintenance period will be displayed in the in-game scoreboard. To see your new medals and titles, they've added a new title screen and medal screen in the iDroid. Basically, go to the iDroid, go to stats, and then go to personal, then you'll be able to check out your titles and medals. This gives a bit more incentive to play better. However, at the moment, at the time of this video, I'm not sure what the requirements for the various titles are. The medals, on the other hand, are fairly straightforward. They also reward you with GP once you achieve one. Next, moving on to titles and medals, to user marks. Basically, this is another new feature. There are 3 different types of markers that you can place on the map during a match: attack, defend, and enemy. User markers can be placed via the iDroid or when you're looking through your binoculars. User markers are then shared with the rest of your team, and each team can place up to 3 markers. After placing a marker, players must wait 5 seconds before they can place another marker. They've also added a section under the system menus and options where you can select a preset radio line that will automatically be played when placing a marker. This new feature is quite good and adds a lot more strategy to the game. However, I don't know if players will take advantage of this to its fullest. I can imagine players who party up more often will take advantage of this feature more than just randoms. Next, moving on to another new feature, preset text. This feature can now be accessed by holding the call button and switching the mode to preset text. Players then have an option to display the text to your teammates by choosing lines from the team mode, or to display to everyone, including enemies, by choosing the lines from all mode. Players can flip through the pages to choose a preset text from a total of 4 pages, so there's quite a lot of options here. It adds a lot more possible communication between you and your teams, especially if you don't like using headsets. Next, and one of my personal new additions with this patch, is they've added additional background music. They've added 9 new tracks to the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions of the multiplayer. Next, they've added a new scoring criteria. There's 2 new ways you can score points. The first is to destroy walker gears. When you destroy a walker gear, you will be rewarded with walker gear destruction points. However, this has to be a player controlled walker gear, not one that's just simply standing around. The next is Amazing Throw. This new bonus is scored when a player hits an enemy player on the head with a thrown weapon like a magazine or even a grenade. The Amazing Throw is personally going to be quite hard to get unless it's on a stationary opponent. Next, they've made some adjustments to the round result screen. Players can now be controlled while the round result screen is being displayed. However, players cannot cause damage to enemy players during this time. Damage reactions will still be performed though. Also, radio broadcasts will be made to all players, including the enemy. They've also added the feature to close and open the round screen by pressing the menu function. Next, they've made various adjustments to class abilities. First, they've added reload speed boost to the Weapons Plus level 3 ability. Next, they've removed the reload speed boost from Lethal Aim Plus level 3 ability and instead added improved firing stability while moving. This also applies to the non-lethal aim level 3 ability. Next, they've added the following features to the Stealth Camo level 3 ability. Firstly, they've disabled the movement speed reduction applied when using stealth camouflage, and they've extended the time required for a player to be marked when using this ability. Personally, I'm quite pleased with this buff. Although I never really used stealth camo level 3 before, I do feel that the Infiltrator has suffered quite a big nerf with the recent patch. Okay, it was a little bit overpowered, but I feel they nerfed him too much. Hopefully, with this buff to the stealth camo level 3, it will make the Infiltrator a bit more of a viable class again. And lastly, for the ability adjustments, the shield dash can now be cancelled out by aiming the weapon with shield level 3 ability. Next, moving on to weapon adjustments. Firstly, they've sped up the draw speed of all handguns except for the Tornado 6. They've also reduced the speed of all machine guns and the Serval AMR 7. They've decreased the damage value on the S1000, Kabarga 83 and the Bullhorn SG. However, they've also extended the firing interval on these same weapons. However, they have increased the knockback value on the S1000, Kabarga 83, the RASP TB M2000D and Uragan G. Firing at an enemy with a shotgun in close range will knock the enemy off their feet to the ground. However, they've decreased the knockback on the Bullhorn SG. They've also decreased the damage range on the stun grenade, as well as decrease the flash effect of the stun grenade. The flash effect will only generate if the player is taking stun damage or if the explosion happens on camera. Thanks to this, I'm seeing a lot less stun grenades in the game. Next, they've decreased the amount of sway when aiming through a weapon with attachments, such as a scope and sights when moving. Next, they've raised the volume on the Photon Cannon's movement sound effect for easier detection. Also regarding the Photon Cannon, equipping a cardboard box will now protect you from the effects of a Photon Cannon. However, if the cardboard box is used to defend you from such cannon, then the cardboard box will instead be destroyed, but it will save you in the process. And finally, they reduced the effect time of smoke grenades. So as you can see, there's been more nerfs and buffs across the board to both abilities and weapons. Mainly nerfs though, in my opinion, and it still definitely is making it feel like the Infiltrator is the most difficult class to play now in the multiplayer. Next, moving on to mission adjustments. They significantly increase the time required to recover yourself from a stunned or tranquilizer state as a defender in Cloak and Dagger. Also, if more than half your team commits suicide or is stunned or tranquilizes themselves, the team will automatically lose the match as a penalty in Cloak and Dagger. Next, moving on to adjustments with the buddy system. Players can no longer respawn at a buddy's location if that buddy is either taking damage or is in an unusual state, such as being stunned or tranquilized. Players can no longer use the ERB wormhole to warp towards their buddy's location if their buddy is dead. The effect shown during a buddy respawn and when using the wormhole will now display red for the enemy and blue for allies. And finally, they fixed an issue where players were able to cancel their inactive state right after a buddy respawn by aiming their weapon or equipping the cardboard box. I'm glad to see that they're adjusting the buddy systems, especially the fact that you cannot respawn on your buddy if they're taking damage or in an abnormal state. Next, they've made general balancing adjustments. First is that they've adjusted so that overall players can level up easier. The required amounts of XP has been reduced for each level. Some players may experience a sudden increase in their level when patch 1.02 is applied. They've also made changes to the invincibility state right after spawning in. For example, you are now invincible to Photon Cannons when you spawn in. Players will no longer catch fire when spawning in. Also, enemy bullets will pass through bodies without causing damage when you spawn in. Next, they've slightly decreased the camera shake when a player takes damage while in aim mode. Next, the exhaustion of stamina from sprinting cannot be cancelled out by switching postures. Next, they've extended the time required to recover from a stunned or tranquilizer state. They've also, and a good one, extended the firing interval when using the mortar. They've also adjusted the camera controls when you're using this mortar. On some maps the mortars were quite powerful, but they have been nerfed now. And finally, there's some more adjustments just titled Other Adjustments. They've added the Game Type to Start option under the Systems menu, Options, Control Settings and Game Settings. You can now basically go straight into MGO by going to these settings rather than going to MGS5 the Phantom Pain single player. Next, they've added remote weapon controls under the System, Options and Camera Settings. They've also improved the possibility to assign a late join player on the same team as their party members, hopefully teaming you up with people you want to play with. Next, a new icon has been added in the objective column of the scoreboard, which is displayed when a player successfully defends the data disk in Cloak and Dagger. They've also added a unique hit indicator when you cause damage to mechs such as walker gears. They've also added a unique sound effect that plays when you hit an enemy in the head with a thrown weapon. And finally, they've added MGO credits. These credits can be accessed from the system menu in free play. So that's about it for patch 1.02. As you can see, there have been lots of buffs and nerfs here. They've addressed quite a few bug issues as well, which I'm pleased to see. However, I personally am a little bit disappointed with the class balances at the moment. Okay, the Infiltrator was overpowered in the original game, but now they feel very ineffectual against the Recon and Enforcer classes. It's also sad to see that the game is reverting into what happened in MGO2, Metal Gear Solid 4's online mode, where players just seem to constantly be running around, shooting weapons, as close quarters combat and even Photon recovery is very difficult to pull off now. But anyway, Konami have said that they are monitoring user feedback and will continue to make changes and adjustments as Metal Gear Online 3 moves forward. But anyway, what do you feel about the online mode and the state of it at the moment? Leave a comment down below because I'd love to hear what you think. And until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a patch information video regarding patch 1.02 on Metal Gear Online 3. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.